Okay, well, hello and welcome again to a new episode of the KewCast. I'm John. I'm joined again by my good pal, Eddie. How you doing, buddy?
John, it has been a hot minute. Where have you been?
Yes, it turns out I went to China.
Okay. Looking for you.
Hong Kong and China. Are you looking for me?
Yeah.
On the TV, just turning into the local news. But yeah, it was a big trip, a lot of fun. I'll talk about that at the head of the show here. But we do have a good episode. We've got a bunch of news to cover. We're talking Ronbus Quantas this week.
Exciting.
They were the big news last week on every other podcast, and rightfully so. I happened to be in China when Ronbus dropped that paddle, so I got the news from over there, which was interesting. We're going to also talk about the ProXR Jolt. Did you ever have Jolt Cola? Remember that was the first caffeinated,
the over-caffeinated,
yeah.
right? I think
Right.
I tried it just to see what the impact would be, but
Yeah.
it just not the same as regular
didn't
Coke. I'm a
taste-
Coke guy. Are you a Coke guy?
I like Coke.
Or are you a Pepsi
better,
guy?
I like Coke better than Pepsi. Yeah.
Pepsi should not even exist in this universe.
That's a hot take from Eddie. You and Isaac should have you're probably on the same page there, but if not, that would be a good debate. Yeah, and then we're going to get into some real geeky stuff and deep dive. Not too geeky. I've got some updates on spin durability for the Selkirk Boomstik and the Gearbox GX2 Power.
Cool.
And a little bit of break-in information for the GX2 Power, and then a bit more of the ball analysis that we've been keen on discussing. Let's get into it, shall we?
Let's go with the China trip.
Okay, sure. Well, before I didn't ask you,
Oh.
did you have a good week last week? Did you do anything special?
I was here in this country just holding things down.
Okay, I appreciate that.
The U.S. is fine, thanks to me. Everything
You'll
is
take
good.
the entire credit for that. I mean, is it fine, though?
Yeah.
Thanks to you, though, it didn't
You can hear about
collapse.
that in our other podcast.
Right. Yeah, well, good. Well, on to my trip. So I left, geez, I can't even remember. I think it was like Friday of last week or week before last. And I didn't have that bad of jet lag this time. I got some solid sleep on the plane. Normally I'm trash for a couple of days.
Going that way, coming this way.
Usually coming back this way, but even going
Yeah.
that way, if it's over 12 hours, and this is a 14-hour flight, I was like, man, I'm in for it. But I just powered through that first day. You know, I slept on the plane. You're losing all these hours going over there. You're losing 14 hours from Colorado time. And yeah, just powered through the first day, but landed like at 5 a.m. after sleeping a bunch of hours on the flight. But I was up from like 2 a.m. local Hong Kong time on the rest of the flight, and then like stepped off the flight at 5 a.m. Met some folks. They took me to the PPA tournament there, and then Michelle called, you know, which seemed like for me late afternoon, and she's like, "So is it morning there?" And I'm like, "No, it's afternoon." And I looked, it was 9:30 a.m. I had already had a full day. But so the good folks from Stacked met me at the train station. And Stacked is a Hong Kong local indoor pickleball facility, which is something in Hong Kong because if you've been to downtown Hong Kong, it's just high rises, you know, and the real estate is, you know, very expensive, and there's no open space. So they actually found miraculously this indoor building with high enough ceilings to build 3 pickleball courts. And there's a nice pro shop in there, and there's kind of an island in between for socialization. Really nice, really cool spot. And all the people, the owners of Stacked, are exemplary people. And I have a T-shirt for you, Eddie. I meant to wear one of my either
And
Stacked
how does
or
it stack up against our local clubs here in
Yeah.
terms of like court quality and lighting and all that stuff?
It's good. I'd say it's on the high end of quality in terms of what we have options over here for. Yeah. And like I said, the culture there is and that facility is really great because one cool thing about it is it's like literally in the middle of a mall. My hotel was on the 18th floor. I just took the elevator straight down and went into Stacked. But there's a big glass front to the building, and people will come, and it's right in front of an elevator in the middle of a mall, and people will come and wait for an elevator, and they're like, what the heck's going on in there, right? So you always have kind of an audience, and it draws in a lot of people just curious, like, what is this game? Or I've heard of pickleball, you know. So pretty cool. But yeah, the culture there is cool. You know, they're introducing a lot of people to pickleball in Hong Kong. Before they arrived, it was a pretty small scene compared to other parts of Asia. But Coincidentally, the PPA was hosting their first event in Hong Kong for PPA Asia. The day I arrived was Championship Sunday. So I went in and I got to PPA thanks to the stacked crew and watched some of the local competitors. One thing I noticed, and people there know it too, is people's dupers at the amateur level are very deflated in Hong Kong, at least, and probably most throughout Asia. I think it's because there's less connections, between players from the U.S. to there. But I went to this court, and many amateur courts were going on together with the pros, and I was watching. They looked like 4-5 minimum. And I was like, "Hey, what division is this?" They're like 3-5. I'm like, these people are they sandbagging? They're like, no, they're legitimately like a 3-8. I was like, man.
These need to get some cross-fertilization going.
Right. Not going to be happy Americans aren't going to be happy when their dupers drop and everybody from Hong Kong raises. But yeah, so a lot of good talent there in the amateur division, especially for a country that's relatively new to pickleball.
And where was that venue?
It was in a massive stadium across town in Hong Kong. And I don't know if you saw any pictures from the event. I posted some Instagram photos. But they didn't have all the bleachers pulled out, but the bleachers were like, I don't know, probably 30 rows high, and they surrounded the entire auditorium. Yeah, so massive capacity. The crowds were pretty decent, not as much as I'd say like, definitely not as much as Worlds or some of the bigger PPA tournaments here, but definitely bigger than some of the smaller PPA tournaments. So I'd say kind of average there, which is great for where they're at, having the first official PPA tournament there. And then the pros, there weren't any top American pros, but there were top like the main guy in Hong Kong, their main hero from pickleball, Jack Wong, I think is his name. I think he double crowned, or is he at least in 2 finals, and he's an exceptional player. There were a lot of international folks from Vietnam and China and other parts of Asia, so that was really fun to watch. And they pulled me into the commentator booth, got to do some commentating, which was a lot of fun. I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do. I might just be a blithering idiot because I'm totally jet lagged. But, your mind kind of turns on. It actually helped my jet lag because I was in the stands. Even though the play was exceptional, I was in the stands kind of nodding off, just like, oh, I can't. I'm going to have to find a bed soon. But just going into the commentator booth helped me, survive the day. We had great food. Again, thanks to folks from Stacked to show me around and show me the food. We just went down into the mall and got some great food, and then I crashed like at 9 p.m. and slept straight through the night and pretty much was done with my jet lag after that. So next morning, grabbed a high-speed train into Shenzhen in mainland China. So those of you that don't know, Hong Kong is its own territory, and you've got to go through customs to get into China. You can take a ferry or you can take the high-speed train. And Shenzhen's literally just like a 20-minute high-speed train ride from Hong Kong. Met Dale from 60, who hosted the trip in Shenzhen at the train station there, and then spent the rest of that week in the factory that makes his paddles in Shenzhen. We toured around for some other raw materials factories as well, which was actually really cool. So great to see, kind of behind the curtains and see, these assembly lines. We've all kind of probably seen on YouTube, various images of different factories making Gen 1 paddles. But, there's a little bit of the thermoforming process on YouTube if you look hard for it, but it's still just kind of piecemeal and it's not very thorough. So to be able to actually see how the paddles are made, this is the epicenter of paddle production worldwide, in China. This and a few other factories. So it was really cool to get to see it. And it's, they've got a lot of state-of-the-art equipment. They've got the loudest ball cannon in the world. they have this PP core machine. I'm not kidding. I've never heard a louder explosion indoors, Not be happy if I bought this car. I don't know what they did to this thing to make it so loud, but it was ridiculous. But yeah, they're getting PB core. They've got deflection going on there. They've got their own X-ray machine now in-house in that facility. And they've got, 3 floors and dozens of rooms. They've got people working on, every stage of the paddle manufacturing process. So I've got, so Dale walked me through how they make like the 6-0 Ruby or double black diamond, like their traditional thermoform paddles. And so I'll, create a video out of that and just kind of, I think it'll be interesting for people to see because it's very labor intensive. There's a lot of manual labor involved. You and I have seen clips of it, but never like the whole process. So there's that, and I got to see the new lineup from 6-0, which we can't talk about yet. The embargo will be finished soon, but some good stuff in the works. Excited to talk about it.
Any surprises for you?
Overall, in terms of the process? It wasn't too much of a surprise, but I think what will be a surprise for most people is, again, how labor intensive it is to create a paddle. It's not like you slap some polypropylene down, glue on the face sheets like the old Gen 1 methods. That's pretty quick and pretty mechanized. There's a lot of hands-on wrapping of the expanding foam and basically carbon fiber. It looks like rolling cigarettes, basically, or sushi rolls, to put into the edge foam. And then, that's the Gen 2. And then they've got to get the precision on the thickness of the polypropylene right. So they're sourcing that from other factories. They'll talk about another factory we went to in addition to the carbon fiber. So there's just a whole chain of events that has to be really locked in, and flow well together to make paddles. And, they're churning out a lot of paddles out of these factories. You see stacks and stacks and stacks of paddles.
Is there also like research and prototyping going on there, or is it simply manufacturing of?
That's a good question. Yeah, there is a research lab, and that's where the PB core machine is, and the deflection. They've got like a little area where you can, like a ball machine, it'll launch balls at you. You hit it back into a net, and it funnels it back into the ball machine. So it's like an endless loop. I want to make one of those for my basement. It's pretty cool. And the X-ray, and they've got, most people have seen that paddle slapper thing, like it's a stopper and the paddle like hundreds of times, over and over again. I think, Ronbus was the first to show that in one of their videos. This is like a, torture test or a break-in test. And they've got the cage that shoots the ball, not the PB core, but another cage that shoots the ball. And it ends up on a little escalator thing and it shoots it again. So just firing the ball over and over at paddles. So pretty, pretty technical stuff, pretty state-of-the-art laboratory. They didn't have like a CT scanner like Selkirk's lab. I'd say that one is, elite tier, the Selkirk's own in-house QC and product development lab. But it wasn't far away. I was duly impressed.
So I'm curious, did you get a feel for how many people work in a place like that?
Yeah. I was there for a few days. We traveled around within China during those days too, but the 2 days I was there, like full time, I saw probably 60 staff.
Wow.
Yeah. Not a small amount.
No.
Yeah. And
they're just manufacturing for 6-0?
No. There are other companies that use that. I think Dale has a special relationship with the owner of this particular factory. I can safely say he does the most like R&D and brings stuff to the factory instead of taking menu options from the factory and creating new paddles that way. So I can confidently say that about 6-0's relationship with this factory. There's another really big factory in a close nearby city, and this wasn't part of this trip because this was hosted by 6-0. At some point, I'd love to go get eyes on that other big factory. And I probably shouldn't say which paddle companies use that one, but people probably know. If you know, you know.
I could probably guess.
Yeah, and but we also visited some other supply factories. So second day I was there, we went to visit a carbon fiber manufacturing factory, and they're licensed for Toray carbon fiber, but they also produce like Chinese carbon fiber. And Toray, it turns out that the Toray you hear all about, which is the Japanese high quality carbon fiber, you can only get those threads from Japan, and they probably have a factory here in U.S. And so that's the Toray brand, and there's they make their own threads, but those threads are shipped out to licensed factories who then weave those threads into various fabrics. It can be either the unidirectional prepreg, which most paddles are faced with, or the twilled bidirectional weave, which other paddles are still using. Many other things, the 10K woven cloth, and then a bunch of stuff that's unrelated to pickleball, right? So there were the Toray spools there, but there are these big looms, right? And all of these threads coming into the looms. Might show some B-roll. It's really cool stuff, and you just see it weaving these fabrics. So that was cool to visit that factory. And this was also in Shenzhen. And then second factory we visited that same day within Shenzhen was like the Face Layup factory. So they take the carbon fiber sheets, weaves from this factory that we just visited, and they, create the face sheets that our paddles use. So either like the 090 unidirectional carbon fiber weaves, or the fiberglass in the center, and they also are cutting the polypropylene and full foam cores there as well. So pretty cool to see that as well. And then all of this kind of funnels its way back into the main paddle factory. So they've got the pre-cut polypropylene if they're using honeycomb polypropylene. And I'll talk more about the full foam cores in a second, because there's some unique aspects to how they're made, and there's different aspects. But if they're using full foam EPP inserts in the same way that they're using the polypropylene, they have those they cut those locally, and those come into the factory, and they just plop those in to the thermoforming mold instead of the polypropylene. There's another way to do it as well, which I'll talk about in a second. And then, everything. And then the face sheets from the other factory come in, and they put that into the mold, and all it goes into the oven. Then they have cooling machines, and then they have laser graphics, going on in the same factory. And they've got people putting on the edge guards, and they've got people wrapping the handles, and then they've got people putting the cellophane wrap on the handles, and then they got people putting, the paddles and the packaging, and everything is finished in the factory. So really, really a lot going on in there. It's pretty crazy.
When I was with the Consumer Product Safety Commission many years ago, we had to tour some factories here and there. And my two takeaways were, one, labor is so cheap in China, they just throw people at every problem.
They've got the people.
I mean, even Starbucks has like an ungodly number of employees working because they're just, it's so cheap to maintain staff. But the other takeaway is all their facilities are just meticulously clean, very well kept, completely organized, and just everything is amazingly efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, the efficiency really struck me as well. It's just like, geez, this is a massive undertaking and process, and if your station is putting the wraps on the handles, you've got your little spinny wheel, and you're just doing it probably hundreds per day, right? And then there's the person putting on the face sheets and sticking that into the thermoforming mold, and then there's the people in that room with scraping out the thermoforming molds to clean them and spraying them down like with like a nonstick spray, and there's people on every part of this process.
Exactly.
And you replicate that in the U.S., and paddles are going to cost $1,000, right? No kidding, because the labor costs are so much more expensive here.
Yeah.
Last bit I'll talk about in terms of the trip and the factories we visited. We took a domestic flight within China at one point to a foam factory in a city called Yiwu. That's Y-I-W-U. And Yiwu by itself, as an aside, is a really cool city. It's actually the largest wholesale market in the world. And there are people that fly from all over the world. I was talking to somebody, and they're like, I met some guy from like Ghana that flies in, gets all of his trinkets that he has that he sells in like a flea market in Ghana here at the wholesale market, flies back, and it's still cheaper for him to make the flight, buy the goods, return flight, and sell the goods there than it would be to, source it locally or even, order it online or whatever. So really cool. So the largest wholesale market in the world, very international trade city. We saw people from all over the world in the airport. And it's known as the world's capital for small commodities. It also had an old town, which had some buildings like really classic Chinese architecture, like the wood plank siding and then the curved eaves on the roofs, with the ceramic tiles. It was just really cool to look at it. I think it was like some of them were older, but a lot of the buildings were like medieval period, so a few hundred years old. Anyway, there was a foam factory we visited in the industrial side of town in Yiwu, and it was fascinating to see how the foams are made. And foam in the sense of they make EVA, and they make but the EPP with all the beads and how that was manufactured, and how they can manufacture it into slabs for people to then take and cut into paddle shapes and do the same thing they're doing with polypropylene. Or they also had some molds for paddles that they're actually injecting the beads into the molds and infusing the molds with steam and getting the beads to expand internally in the mold. So you have two options now for expanded polypropylene cores and other types of all foam cores. And the basic one is, yes, you get your slab, your 4x8 foot slab of 14 millimeter thick EPP, and you cut your paddle shapes out of it, or you get it done at this factory, and there's probably more in the country that molds it in hot molds. Basically, they're injecting steam. So there are these giant bags of these little beads of EPP and other types of foam. They also, a lot of their business was like those little toy airplanes. So you could just assemble them. There's the wings and there's the body of the airplane. So it's all made out of like EPP. Uh-huh. And so there's hundreds of thousands of these toy airplanes, and there's bouncy balls, and there's different formulas and different, different mixes of the different types of foam and the beads. So I've got some balls out here. I'll show you. They're bouncy balls, and they're made out of like the same beads, but different formulations, and they bounce like crazy. Are
all the beads of the same general size?
Yeah, more or less, just as you would expect.
Its application.
Yeah, So really cool to see that. And there were these giant vats at this factory where they're doing like industrial grade foams. And, instead of the individual paddle molds, giant vats, and they're just stirring these beads around. Mm-hmm. And I'm not kidding, they're 2 stories high, and thousands of gallons in those vats. Very cool to see. But I had a fantastic time. I ended up going back through Hong Kong to fly back home. But big thanks to Dale from 60 and the factory, who is
Sounds
producing
great.
his paddles. They hosted me like a king, man. I've never eaten so much food. I thought I'd never be hungry again.
I was going to ask, what was your favorite meal?
So there were like 7 cuisine types they were telling me about, like provincial cuisines within China. I think the most popular American version of Chinese food is based on Szechuan. That's one of the 7. There's others. I forget the names of them. Yeah. But one of them was like, it was similar to Szechuan. It was spicy in that sense, but it might have been just because the restaurant we ate this cuisine in was exceptionally good. Mm-hmm. But that was the best meal I had. It was just like, your traditional meats. You get like fatty meats. You got duck, your roasted duck, and you've got various parts of chicken, and you've got your rice, fried rice. You've got a bunch of noodles. You got soups. I mean, it was always the big lazy Susan spinning around, and it was always like, we've got a good sized meal here, and it never stopped coming. It's just like they put another massive plate of soup on, another massive thing of noodles.
Sounds like heaven to me.
It was really good. I wonder what happens to the food. Like, I hope they don't just throw it away, because you can never ever finish it. It was just like food for an army, right? And so it was all good times.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity.
Well, we missed you here. The podcast went well, but it's just not the same.
Right. I didn't even see it yet, so I'll tune in. All right, Eddie. Any other questions, comments about China?
It's an amazing trip.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's move on to other news items. So James Ignatowich, he's now made it public that he is leaving Selkirk. Not on bad terms. They've had a great run together, but they mutually parted ways. So he's actually starting his own paddle company too, which the paddle company is named RPM. That's nothing, no breaking news if you're in the know, like on Discord and stuff. People have been chatting about this for a while. But he might be visiting us here in Colorado next week after, what's the PPA this weekend? It's going to be in
Cincinnati?
Cincinnati, yeah. So after Cincinnati.
It's close. It's right on the way.
We've been talking about doing a pod together for a while, and I have this series of interviews with pros where I'm asking about why they play with their particular paddle shape. So he plays with an elongated. I'll do something similar with him, and we'll both produce some content out of it. I don't know if he's starting a new podcast or what, because he had that one with Selkirk. I loved that one. It was always him just chatting about some strategies and different things here and there. But
so does this mean he will no longer be sponsored by a paddle company?
His own company, yeah.
He'll just be self.
Right. So he's still using. He still will be using Selkirk for this last Cincinnati tournament, and then after that, he's going to be using his RPM. So I'm sure we'll get to see what paddle he is producing. And by the way, I've been chatting with him for a while now, a few weeks, I guess, or maybe a few months, since San Clemente. I met him in San Clemente face to face, and he actually is very knowledgeable about paddles, and he's gone through a big learning curve because he started his own company. He wanted to know about it, and he's not just one of these companies who's like, hey, what are the menu options on Alibaba? I'll get a paddle off there. So they're actually doing some R&D, and we'll see. We'll see what their first paddle is like. Kind of excited to see.
Must be certified by now.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, go look up RPM on USAP approved website. Probably see what it looks like at least. So we'll get some scoop on his new paddles and get him here live in the studio, hopefully, if he can make it next week. All right, Eddie, did you get to see any of the PPA Las Vegas?
I saw a couple of the finals.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
Did you watch the men's final?
I did, some of it.
Yeah.
Until it got a little bit boring at the end.
That's the only one I wanted to talk about. The fantastic tournament outside of that, but we're not really a pro tour recap podcast, but occasionally I like to pull in some things to chat about from the pro tours. And so this particular men's finals match was between Ben and Gabe versus Andre and Christian Alshon. Andre Daskew and Christian Alshon. And it was clear that Andre and Christian had a strategy. They were going to lob the crap out of them. And I don't know if this was a dual strategy or it was just Christian just spitballing it. But Christian's strategy was hit it as hard as he could, full send at Gabe, and just see if he could get a bunch of points. And both of those ended up being, first game, extremely productive and a good strategy. But my...
Did you get a count of the number of lobs?
No. Did you?
17.
17 lobs. Oh, my God. So, I mean, first of all, how annoying it, but lobs are a great strategy, but they're annoying.
Lee Waters,
heck.
I think, has a problem with it.
Right. Anybody who gets lobbed 100 times is just like, I hate this person. So they had the most annoying strategy, highly effective. But I mean, you've got to find something that's going to work against Ben and Gabe, right? And that one ended up being very effective. The lobs, but you could just see it in Ben and Gabe's face. They were like, these guys are just the worst. But what do you think, Eddie? And open it up to our viewers to comment as well. Do you think this is a good strategy? I mean, would you, I don't want to say stoop to this level, although the full sends is kind of stooping a bit, but would you just lob the heck out of somebody and try to hit them over and over again with the ball to win a point? Would you do that to win, and would you feel good about yourself? I don't know.
I would feel good about myself.
Would you?
I'm okay employing anything within the rules that's going to win. Now, as a strategy for an entire match, I don't know how effective that will be because I think, especially at the pro level, they're fully capable of adjusting to any kind of tactic like that. But in the moment, on a particular point, yeah, man, go for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, maybe at the amateur level, I'm not as keen with the full sends because it is a little more dangerous at the amateur level. You're more than likely to get hit in the face.
Can I say it's kind of a dick move at open play?
It's a total dick move at open play for sure. I would say even at PPA tournaments for amateurs, maybe once in a blue moon, like if somebody's, I don't know, as retaliation, maybe a full send. Now, I know I'm in the minority on this, and a lot of people are like, dude, it's part of the game. Get over it. Yeah, I can accept that, especially at the pro levels. But I didn't like seeing Christian just going as hard as he could, chest high at Gabe over and over again. You know, it bothered me.
I was reading some of the comments on YouTube, and it bothers a lot of people.
Does it?
But it doesn't bother me. My feeling is, if you're an opponent, then handle it. Yeah. And I'm going to keep coming at you with that until you are able to, right? Yeah. It's like drives down the line. I'm going to keep doing that shot until you're able to stop it, and then I'll transition to something else. But I do have a problem with headshots. I don't have a problem with body shots. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. It was annoying, and I could see why Gabe was getting annoyed and Ben. But yeah, it's fair game. The issue, like I said, is Christian and other pros are fully capable of aiming correctly. And to be fair, Christian wasn't hitting it as hard as like Ben hit the ball at Guangdong. Like he almost took his head off if it would have hit him. That was like a 100-mile-an-hour shot, right? Yeah. It was measured. You know, it was full sends. Yeah. And the goal was not to get the ball in. It was to hit Gabe and get a point. But it wasn't egregiously, you know, over the top so that he didn't have any control. They were high, sometimes neck high, but never was it at his face. That's my issue with it in the amateur rinks. We don't have as much control. Yeah. If we're trying to hit people, you know, and there's no chance of the ball going in.
And don't do it against Ethel.
Against Ethel. Dude, old people are the most brutal.
Sometimes but you know what? This wasn't a problem when Anna Lee did it against Jay DeVilliers in that one point. I mean, that's true. Is she off limits, or is it okay in certain situations?
Yeah, that's true. Here's another question. Since we went there to the gender issue, would it be okay to do full sends at a woman and mixed doubles?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Is it?
Like we don't see it in the pros. We don't see it in the amateurs, really. I mean, like the full sends, like the Hayden Patrick one, just body you up, kind of. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
But as a strategy, as an introductory strategy in a match, it can get into somebody's head, right? You start off with a body shot like that, then they start to get sort of ingrained into thinking that that's going to be what's coming at them. Then you come with a lob or, you know, one of those soft shots at the shoulder and they're floundering. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it. I mean, it definitely gets in people's head. Like, you're going to think twice about leaning in if you know that the full body send is an option and the lob, and it gets you guessing. So, it just, you know, to summarize what happened, didn't they win the first game? They won the first or second game, right?
Second game, I believe.
Okay. So the strategy worked until it didn't.
Right.
And Gabe adapted. Gabe has an issue with not being able to let out balls go. Like, none of these were even going to hit the court. They're going to hit the back board. But he's just so fast with his hands, he just can't dodge them, right? But even so, he adapted. He at one point he bagged Andre Daskew in front of him from a full send that Alshon hit him and just whack.
That's exactly what I'm saying. The adjustment was made, and And at that point, the strategy's over.
Yeah. All right. So we had a camera die. Still happening, Eddie, after over a year of doing this podcast.
We'll get there.
There's still technical difficulties someday. Anyhow, I think we've covered that enough.
By the way, John, what's the golden rule of pickleball? Well, there's probably many, but
the golden rule
in regards to this.
To what?
To the discussion we were having about body bagging and.
I don't know if there's a golden rule. I mean, I typically seek revenge if I get bagged a few times. Okay, I'm really bad about that. Like,
I think that's more of a silver. Maybe
that is part of the fun of pickleball, honestly, is like those revenge shots. Like, you get bagged a few times and you just totally bag somebody up, and it feels good.
No, I like that.
But
do unto others as they have done unto you.
Right. That's the golden rule.
I like that.
But it's not the most effective strategy. Why? What did you have in mind?
Well, I was thinking that, when I have the opportunity to give people guidance on the court, my thought is the ball's always going to come hard. That should be your assumption. Whether you're in a dinking situation or your opponent's in the midcourt, the ball's always going to come hard until it isn't.
Yeah.
But that should be the mindset, right? Be prepared for the hard shot, because the soft shot's easier to prepare for.
True. Default is to be on red alert, but the key to that, I think, to performing well under that heightened alert is to be able to be loose while you're alert. Because if you're just like this the whole time, your game suffers.
100%.
Right? Yeah. So that's part of the beauty of pickleball too is that it is so nerve-wracking, but you have to be calm in the face of that constant pressure, you know.
Okay, so maybe that's not a golden rule. Maybe it's just a tip. Amateur
It's a
tip.
golden tip. Okay. Let's move on. So another piece of news is that Honolulu Pickleball Company is doing a Mystic Flood Relief paddle release, a limited edition for this tragedy that happened this summer in Texas with all the floods that swept through this camp of young girls. And 100% of the proceeds of this paddle will go to the Camp Mystic Flood Relief. The paddles he's selling the J2 and F, and it's like a blackout version, pretty cool looking graphics, so slightly different looking graphics for $225. No codes work, so you can't get a discount on that. But I just thought it was a really good cause, and it's like I said, 100% of the proceeds going to that Camp Mystic Flood Relief. So thanks to Honolulu for doing that. Another bit of paddle news is that Carbon, I just got off a conference call with Carbon and a bunch of paddle reviewers, and they've got another paddle release launch coming out soon. Most of us by now have heard of the Carbon Trufoam Waves, their next Trufoam paddle, and that will be launching now on the 25th of this month. Yeah. So September 25th, the Waves is coming out. I can't say much about the technology that's still embargoed. They'll be more slowly released going up into getting closer to the launch date, but I can say that it's a power version. At least that's what they tell me. I don't have it yet. I do have a shipping receipt, so I'll be getting it soon. You and I can test it out. But they say it's a power version of their Trufoam Genesis, which they're calling kind of all court, right? So, yeah.
Okay. Looking forward to that.
Cool. Yeah, they're going to have it in all their shapes. It's going to be the same price and launching on the 25th.
Awesome.
One more piece of paddle news. I didn't put this in the notes yet because I wanted to ask you, Eddie, has Gherkin reached out to you? The paddle company Gherkin?
No, they haven't.
They haven't? Have you heard what's going on with them?
I would remember that.
Okay. Have you heard what they're doing?
No.
So they apparently didn't reach out to any of the podcast hosts, but they reached out to Pickleball Studio, Pickleball Effect, and Pickleball Pursuit, at least to the co-hosts, and sent them paddles without the hosts knowing. But they didn't reach out to you? I am offended, Gherkin. Didn't reach out to
I'm done
one
with
of the
them.
best
I never started with them, but I'm done.
Well, we don't have a relationship with Gherkin. I don't know why it never happened. I actually did do a search in my email to see if I missed any emails from him. I don't see anything from Gherkin, but come on, man. Eddie.
I don't know how they would reach me unless it was through you. So
Yeah.
maybe that was part of the problem.
Maybe that's part of the problem. But yeah, don't slide Eddie, man. Come on.
What an interesting strategy.
I thought it was a funny thing for them to do.
I like it.
All right, let's move on. 82 paddles of the week.
Oh, yeah.
So the much talked about and the big drop last week was the Ronbus Quanta series. It's not dropped yet. Technically, it goes on sale this Friday. But everybody started talking about it last week. I was in China during that time. I got the Quantas just before I left and got some measurements on them. But let's chat about them. So they're going to be $120 before code, which $20 off with code brings them down to smooth $100. Comes in all 5 of their shapes, so the R1 through R5, which are R1 elongated, R2 wide body, R3, what is the R3? I forget. R4 is the hybrid. R5 is like the wide body with the aero curve top. What's the R3? I forget.
I thought the R2 was the elongated.
No, R2 is the wide body. Anyway, you can get
that's true. Yeah.
any shape under the sun. And
R3 is elongated because R1 is a hybrid.
R1 is the elongated, but it has the aero curve top. That's right. R2 is the wide body. R3 is the traditional elongated, like the Perseus shape, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Eddie. Yeah, they have 2 elongated shapes.
It's a little ridiculous.
Right. Okay, and I've got the X-ray here. We can check that out. So what's going on in the core? So it is a full foam paddle, and what we see in the X-ray is that there is a EPP foam center, and there is an EVA band around that center, and then on the cheeks of the paddle is some thicker foam inserts, which are TPE foam inserts there. I'll talk about that in a second. And then the EPP foam from the center of the paddle extends down into the handle. And then they've got, Ronbus loves this carbon fiber grid, 3D grid lattice system. And they've got that wrapped around the handle and around the edges like, most of their other paddles these days have. So yeah.
Is that the weight that we're seeing there on the edge?
No, we're not seeing. No. Do you mean like on the cheeks? Extending right above the handle? I don't know what that is, actually. It's something dense for it to show up in the x-ray so brightly. Maybe just another band of carbon fiber there. Not sure.
It's interesting.
But maybe a little edge weighting. Now, the key feature of these is how, A, they're cheap, B, they're solid foam, C, they're super, super lightweight. So I just measured the R3 shape, which is they're elongated, 110 swing weight. That's the lowest swing weight on an elongated that I've ever measured. And it goes down to like just over 100 for the wide body, like 101, I think the lightest paddles outside of that were, remember those old Electrum, I forget the model name, but they came out with these edgeless paddles that were just hyper lightweight. And there was one I think just under 100 swing weight, and it was like 10 millimeters thick. These are 16 millimeter thick paddles with edge guards coming in between like 100 and 110 swing weight, which is crazy low, right? So that obviously influences how they play, but they're also there's some appeal to that for the paddle enthusiast crowd because they can manipulate the crap out of it with however they want to put their edge weights on.
Really hard to take off weight from a paddle.
Yeah, that's difficult. All right, so TPE, the foam in the cheeks, is thermoplastic elastomer. That's what TPE stands for. And I want to cut one of these open to see how soft it is. You can get it in different densities. I don't know what density they're using. It must be pretty low for the paddles to weigh so low to begin with. But typically TPE is similar to like EVA. It's a softer foam used often in sneakers and sports shoes, for its springiness. Typically it's soft, elastic, and shock absorbing. So, I'm happy to see something besides this traditional formula of dual density all foam cores where you have the EPP in the center and the EVA band around the outside. So there's a third type of foam in this one. Don't know exactly how it enhances play, but let's talk about how they play, Eddie.
Yeah, first I wouldn't use the word cheap with these paddles. I'd call them inexpensive for sure. But
did I say cheap?
There's nothing cheap about these paddles. These paddles are very high quality. They play amazingly.
For the price, yeah, for sure.
I think they play amazingly for any price.
Would you? Okay.
Yeah, I think these would be a hot seller at double the price. And at this price, they are going to just fly out the factory doors.
Yeah, there's no way he's making a lot of profit on these. He might even be losing money on these. But so we've had a little time yesterday on the court with them. I've been hitting around inside as well on them. It's become cliche at this point, when we're talking about ultra lightweight paddles to say that, you can't open up the potential until you put on weight. But this is a classic example of when that makes sense. I can imagine, playing at stock only for like juniors, like if you're under 10 years old or somebody who's, has some wrist injuries or just can't play with any paddle that's not the lightest weight on the market. But when you start adding weight to these is when they really open up. Let's first talk about how they felt stock. How would you classify how the paddles play without any weight added?
Yeah, I think the weight comes to fruition in that there just isn't sufficient bulk to prevent twist on a lot of shots. Mm-hmm. And so without that weight, that's kind of what you're feeling. There's still power there without weight, but I think twist weight is where you see that lack of weight really kind of coming to a head.
Yeah.
The other piece is, for me, launch angle was high without weight. And I don't know if that's a factor of, a change in dwell time with more weight, but I had a lot of pop-ups, a lot of just drives and dinks going high. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I was seeing out of the box. How about you?
Yeah. Stock, I thought they felt a little bit generic, definitely poppy, like a generic power paddle, and not much character to them. But if your game is entirely hand speed and you want that ultra lightweight paddle, yeah, these are some of the best on the market for sure. Now let's talk about with weight. So yeah, after adding weight, it adds all the character into the paddle for me. And so let's first talk about firepower. By the way, I added 7.5 grams on each side at 3 and 9 on the wide body. No, it was the elongated R3 shape to compare it to the elongated Selkirk Boomstik that we had, because everybody's making that comparison. Once you weight it up, it plays just like the Boomstik. I wouldn't say just like, but I'd say that the firepower falls, it's definitely a power paddle. It falls close to the Boomstik. I wouldn't put it quite there. I'd put it more in the realm of the new bread and butter Loco, which is, mid to top tier high power classification, well above the Honolulus, but not quite at the Selkirk level.
I would put it at the upper end of the power scale, not at the elite power, definitely not at the Boomstik or the Gearbox or the JOOLA, but just kind of touching on that.
Okay.
That realm. Above the Loco, though, is
above the Loco.
I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and I feel some similarities there. Once you weight it up, similarly to the Boomstik, I could see why that comparison is made. And certainly, if you're on a budget and you don't want to pay $333 for a Boomstik, this is a very viable option. Yeah, they play in a similar fashion, right? Both very powerful, both very poppy, similar spin. I think the Boomstik wins out a little bit in spin, but all of these differences are not big enough, I'd say, to justify that extra $233 unless, you are very, very particular about your paddle. Money's not a concern, and you want all of the attributes of the subtle attributes of the Boomstik that the Quanta doesn't have. There are some feel differences too, but would you agree that, how would you compare it to the Boomstik overall?
It's an interesting comparison because the pop there's some subtle differences in pop there. I feel like the Boomstik, you've really got to kind of put your brain into the game as far as controlling that pop. I think it's a little bit more manageable with the Ronbus.
Okay. By the way, I haven't been holding them up.
Yeah, I like that shape, by the way.
This R4 is the hybrid. Yeah. Got the R1 here and the R2 behind me, which is the square one. Did you have a favorite shape?
I like the 4 a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, but honestly, sometimes with paddle manufacturers, different shapes provide much different results. And these were playing very evenly for me across the board.
I'm still leaning towards the R2 shape, and I can't figure out why, because I feel like the R4 has everything the R2 has, but a little more. Like you get a little bit more reach. It's almost just as wide at the top. There's a little bit of flare on it. But, I think it is, now that I'm looking at it, it's the taper of the neck. There's just less face on the R4, and it just feels a little tighter to me than the R2. It feels a little wider and more forgiving. So I'm still going wide body, I think.
Okay.
I need more time with them. But
I had a good bit of weight on that R4 yesterday, and it felt amazing.
Okay. But yeah, once they're weighted up, there are some subtle differences. And I would actually put these, once they're weighted up, I'd put the feel more comparable to the bread and butter Loco, the new version. So the ball really wants to hop off the Boomstik extremely fast, right when it's on, it's off, but there's some dwell, but it just wants to shoot that ball right off. This one pockets the ball a little bit more. I'd still classify it as not necessarily a soft paddle. I'd put it more kind of medium stiffness. And there's some dwell here too, but there's a denser feel. It's not as hollow as the Boomstik, in the same way that the Loco is a little bit softer and denser feel than the Boomstik. But
definitely feel that softness. It does feel a little bit more plush to me, a little bit more dwell time, I would say. And if that sound of the Boomstik is off-putting, this doesn't have any bit of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a more muted sound-wise, not muted in terms of power. I mean, a little bit less power, but yeah, in terms of sound, it doesn't have that loud crack like the Boomstik. Yeah, it's actually a deeper tone too than the Boomstik. The Boomstik has that crack when you hit it, and it's a deeper tone, a very pleasing Gen 3-ish tone, like we all like. But the Quanta has a slightly lower. I was tapping them together on the court.
It's a little bit bassier.
Slightly bassier sound. But yeah, I'd put it very similar to this most similar counterpart, I'd say, once you weight it up, is the bread and butter Loco.
Not sure Ronbus needs 5 shapes. There's some very close similarities between a couple of these.
Yeah.
That, if they were to consolidate, maybe even drive the price down if they were to, bump up volume on their remaining shapes.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't understand why. Like the R5 shape, I feel like was made just for the Ripple, the V2 Ripple, because it had weight issues. And a lot of people didn't like the heavier swing weights and stuff, so they built that arrow curve wide body shape to mitigate some of the weight issues on the Ripple, which worked well on the Ripple. I don't know how. I mean, the swing weight on that, I don't think I measured it yet. It might even be below 100. It's got to be super, super low. So interesting there. And then, these go on sale. Pre-order starts on this Friday.
Great buy.
The 5th.
If I had one criticism, it would be the handle. It does have some sharp corners. It's not a huge deal. It's a sacrifice that's not really performance related. It's more feel related. But at this price point, easy to forgive.
Yeah, and they are hard PU pallets, which you and I prefer. By the way, we're going to have a separate episode we'll include the PU pallet versus EVA pallet conversation in that, and we'll kind of wrap it up in a topic about what are the responsibilities of paddle reviewers. But apparently we've pissed off, we haven't been the loudest proponents of the stiff EVA pallets in the paddle community, but we do both prefer it. But it's pissed off a lot of paddle companies who feel like
they were forced into it by their reviewers.
Right. And that it's not necessarily a better option. And in fact, the EVA, and this part is true, the EVA, depending on the grade, is actually more expensive than the hard PU pallets. And then there's the vibration benefits, anti-vibration benefits to the EVA. So we should open that up for discussion another time.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Let's move on to the second paddle that we're going to talk about today, which is the ProXR Jolt. They are sold out currently, but the introductory rate on this was $120. I don't know if they're going to continue at that price, but this is a new Gen 3 offering from ProXR. And as far as I know, it's only made in this signature shape, which is the elongated shape that Zane uses for his signature paddle. So we can look at the X-ray here. It's a Gen 3 paddle with an EVA band around very large cell polypropylene. I mean, it's probably 10 millimeter, but it looks actually even a little wider. Maybe they're using 11, maybe 12, not sure. But you've got the horseshoe shape for the EVA foam. That's external edge weighting that we put on in terms of tungsten strips that you're seeing in the X-ray here. It's not built into the paddle. And it looks like the EVA band is the only foam. It looks, if you look down in the handle, there does not appear to be edge foam surrounding the other parts of the paddle. So kind of a fun combination of large cell polypropylene, EVA band. What do you think of the play style of these?
John, I'd put this one in the sort of the average on the power scale, the firepower scale, higher on power than on pop. It's not a very poppy paddle, but I was absolutely destroying some drives with this paddle. Just cracking the heck out of some of those drives. Very intuitive, easy on, the swing, the launch angle, everything is just right for drives. But for me, the defensive game and the dinks, I could have used a little bit more forgiveness. They were not as crisp for me. And I think that's because of the way the sweet spot on this is set up. There's a ton in the middle section, ton of forgiveness, but high and low on this paddle face, I struggled a little bit.
Okay. I struggled too with certain aspects. So it's interesting too that it's 13 millimeters and it doesn't feel as poppy as I was expecting. There's more kind of plushness and heavier on the power side of that spectrum. So I felt that as well. I do like the feel of how it hits when you hit the sweet spot. It requires a level of accuracy that, I'm spoiled now with all of the newest all foam cores, full foam cores, that there's so much forgiveness laterally That one, I think it's entirely the paddle shape. I don't think they're going out to the max on the rule of 24. I think they're sacrificing some width.
It seems small.
Yeah, and also the super steep taper of the neck reduces the overall size of the face of the paddle, and that kind of cuts into the sweet spot as well. So, Zane Navratil clearly has no problems hitting that sweet spot, but for me, I felt that the sweet spot was a little narrow compared to other Gen 3 paddles. It was a little less forgiving, but yeah, when you do hit the sweet spot, it feels really good, and it's definitely an improvement over their previous paddles for sure.
Aside from the sweet spot, what do you feel about this shape? Does it do it for you?
No, it doesn't do it for me. Yeah, something about it. I think it is the neck taper. It's just you're just losing too much paddle face that way.
This seems to be their signature mold, though.
Yeah, that is.
Maybe we'll see some changes along the way.
Yeah, broaden it out a bit. Change the taper a bit. I don't mind the long handle, but if you're going to have that long handle, you need kind of baggy cheeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you need the jowls
to do this, and the length of the handle seems redundant.
Yeah. Let's jump into a little bit of gear deep dive here. I wanted to ask, what do you think about the kind of benchmark for elite power paddles this year has been the JOOLA Pro 4s, and I still think they definitely were at the beginning of the year. Are they still? Or have we seen other paddles like the Boomstik, the new bread and butter, the one we can't talk about yet, and some others surpass this? And has it pushed the JOOLA Pro 4s kind of into the middle portion of the power category? What do you think?
I personally don't think so. I think there's a crowded lot, and it's getting even more crowded at sort of the top of the scale. I think the JOOLA is still there. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how that may have changed over time following break-in and that sort of thing. But I feel like the JOOLAs are still pretty incredibly powerful.
Yeah. I tend to think they've gone to mid-tier power now.
Okay.
They've been surpassed, especially from, body helix is a given, right? I don't think that's quite a legal paddle, but it's well beyond most other paddles. I'd put the Selkirk Boomstik next and a broken-in Gearbox GX2 Power right there together. And then I'd put I need to hit with a 16 mil more for the Pro 4s, because the 14s, they're a little bit poppier, but they don't have the juice that the 16s have. Like when you really swing through with the 16 Pro 4, that's where you feel that really big power. And my 16 Perseus broke at Core Crush, and now it's a bazooka, so I don't have that reference point. I did get the new Scorpius 16 and 14 from JOOLA, so thank you for that. So I need to hit that Scorpius 16 a little more. I was hitting with it a couple of days ago, and both that and the 14 I felt like just didn't have the juice that the Boomstiks have, and maybe not even or the GX2 Power, maybe not even the bread and butter Loco.
So what do the numbers tell us?
That. Well, interestingly, the Q core and PB core in general, I think on the Pro 4s is deflated. It's artificially low. So they're coming in like, you can look on my chart. I'll flash up on the screen here, but like the 14 millimeter Perseus is like a 0.38 something. So it's at the lower tier of power, which might work for the 14, but definitely not the 16. And we were just running the Q core cannon on the 16 Scorpius and the 14 Scorpius, and they both came in almost exactly the same, so in that lower tier of power. I don't think they are that low in reality. Something's going on, this is, as an aside, we'll get into a little bit of tales from the ball cannon here. This is a fun learning opportunity for this, because I think it's not just my methodology this is happening. I think it is going to be happening at the PPL lab and the USAP lab as well, where the JOOLAs are coming in below where they should be. And this wasn't, by design. It's no conspiracy or anything. It's just for whatever reason, those paddles, the PB core scores are deflated. I don't know if it's the stiffness of the neck or something about the construction. Regardless, that I don't have a lot of confidence. That's one of the only paddles that I don't have a lot of confidence in the Q core or PB core scores. So there's that. And I do think that they do change. I got 3 used paddles of the Perseus 14 from a friend that he goes through them like every 3 weeks. And some of them he says heat up and others kind of get dead spots and lose power. So he likes how they play new. Then he feels like they lose a lot of their performance after a few weeks and gets a new one. So I PB core tested all 3 of those. We'll come back in another week or 2 and kind of explore that. But and one of mine broke too. It got exceptionally more powerful. But I think from what I recall, at least one of his paddles dropped in power from the norm, because I clearly didn't get the beginning PB core, Q core for his paddles, but we know what kind of as a reference what my new paddles scored. So yeah, I think is JOOLA Pro 4 still elite tier power? It's debatable. I feel like brand new, they're going to be mid-tier power, but a lot of them are heating up to elite tier power because of the core crushing and some of the durability issues they have.
And that could be what I'm experiencing as well, John, because I'm basing my analysis on the balls that are coming at me from other folks playing with this paddle, and those paddles can vary in consistency, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good point. I also wanted to talk about spin degradation. So we got some new numbers for our used paddles for the Selkirk Boomstik and the Gearbox GX2 Power. So you've got more hours on your Boomstik than I do. But the original Boomstik that I have, the elongated measured 2306 RPM, which is super, super elite. Mm-hmm. I have about 10 hours on that Boomstik, and I retested it yesterday, and the new number came in at 2293. That exact same paddle, so that's minus 13. That's within the margin of error. So basically it's lost no spin. Now, you have one you've been playing with basically as your main now for how long?
Maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And
I've got about, I would say, 17, 18 hours into it.
Okay. So yours came in at 2143 RPM. Now, we did not get a direct measurement of spin new on your paddle because they sent that directly to you.
Yep.
But, that's losing, just over 100 RPM. Now, the other Boomstik I have, the wide body, came in a little lower stock, brand new. It came in at like 22 something. So yours may have started a little lower too, but we are seeing a little bit of wear on yours. How does that compare to raw carbon fiber? That's still a better degradation rate, making some assumptions here that yours started in the high 2200s and lost, let's say, just under 100 RPM. Mm-hmm. That's pretty darn good for close to 20 hours. And most will have already lost well over 100 RPM by that point. So we'll come back to that in a second, but let's go to the Gearbox GX2 Power. My original spin with this hybrid shape was 2289. So again, really elite firepower. And I have about 12 hours of play on this particular paddle, and I just retested it yesterday. It came in at 2203.
Wow.
So it dropped 86 RPMs, which is pretty good for raw carbon fiber, but it's a bit of a steeper drop off than the Infinigrit on the Boomstik. So some initial promising evidence for both of these paddles. The gearboxes in the past, typically, even though they use raw carbon fiber peel ply, their grit and their spin tended to last a little longer than other paddles, and they always kind of start off a little less gritty than other paddles, right? So they're at that disadvantage, but they tend to keep their grit, and part of that is because some of the spin is from the dwell time rather than just the texture. So it lost, close to 100 RPM in 12 hours, which I'd say is on average a little better than most peel plies. And then we've got the Selkirk Boomstik losing, roughly 100 and double that amount of time, right? So close to 20 hours. So, yeah, pretty promising look for the Infinigrit, but again, it is going to lose its spin eventually. It's not going to stay there forever, and we'll keep checking in at say 20-hour intervals and see where it goes.
I will say subjectively, they both feel stock as far as surface texture goes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to notice any difference in the paddles I've been playing with from when they started.
No, it's good to hear though.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've also got some new power metrics on the Gearbox GX2 Power because it does break in a bit. And again, I've only had about 12 hours of play on this one. I had some prototypes I was testing before this to get a sense of for the review, but regardless, the one I landed on most recently, I've had about 12 hours of play with it. And the original Q core of the new one was 0.407, which I'll flash the screen up here. That puts it kind of right in the middle of the high power category, which, it seems right for the new one. And the broken in one now, which I feel like is stabilized. I feel like after it was a couple of weeks for me, but with the injury, I wasn't playing that much. So it's probably 8 hours in, I want to say. That's when it felt like it started stabilizing. The new PB core, new Q core is 0.428, which may not sound like a lot, but if you plot it on this chart, which I'll show, puts it up closer to the elite tier power. So right around just above the Ronbus Ripple V2 and just below the Selkirk Boomstik elongated.
I've not seen any negligible increase in power in the GX2 Power that I've been using.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
I've probably got double the amount of time in it.
Oh, really?
That you do.
All right.
But
we should test that.
Yeah.
Because maybe you just kind of mapped onto it and haven't noticed it.
But did you take a measure on that one before you handed it off to me?
I can't remember which one you have, but we'll take a look at the records and see. Excellent. Let's kick the ball analysis into next week because we're getting long in the tooth on today's show.
Actually, you already knocked out one of our questions too, so we're catching up on time here. We're making up time in the air, John. The question was really about the GX2 Power.
Okay.
And what you estimate the power to be after breaking.
Okay.
So
you
nailed it. So that was from Luis Enriquez Laura, 5441. This comment from Mr. 3301, Gen 3 is basically dead.
I feel like
what do you think, John?
I feel like I've heard a comment from Mr. before. It used to be a band, right? Like in
Mr.
80s band. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like you and I talked about it on that podcast before. Maybe answering his or her question before. But is Gen 3 dead? That is a really good question. It definitely has more question marks with regard to durability and than our new full foam cores. And you take the carbon Trufoam Genesis, for example. That one, besides some issues with the handles breaking on some paddles that never happened on mine or yours, but apparently some people have had some handle breakage issues, the core has been rock hard stable for me. It just hasn't changed any in terms of its power levels. There's been no disbonding. There's been no crushing. So I actually use that now as my reference paddle to correct balls for Q core. So I fire the balls at the Trufoam Genesis 1, and it's gotten thousands of 50-mile-an-hour hits from correcting balls, and we're continually testing the paddle to see if it's changing too, and it hasn't changed a bit. And that had some play time on it as well. So great durability on some of them, but there's still a question mark whether or not all of the new full foam paddles are as durable. We've seen some disbonding issues with those left in the sun. A couple of brands had those issues, and bonding is a big question mark of can you bond face sheets to a foam core as effectively as you can to polypropylene. So that's a big question mark. But yeah, to his original comment, is it dead? What do you think, Eddie?
Life support, maybe? There's some excellent examples. I'm thinking of the Holbrook Arma. I'm looking at the mark over there. There's some excellent examples.
Bright Fury.
Thank you.
Recently.
There's some great examples of just some fabulously playing paddles out there. But the Gen 4s are coming up quick.
Yeah.
So maybe life support is appropriate.
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with the performance of some of the Gen 3s. So the JOOLA Pro 4s, they play amazing. So does the Thrive Fury and many others who have kind of copied this formula. But they do suffer from durability, all of them. It's not just JOOLA. Something about the polypropylene, there's always been issues with polypropylene when you heat it up, which all of these are thermoformed, and we've never gotten away from the core crushing issue, no matter how hard we've tried. So I think people are sick of it, sick of like your paddle changing, and beyond that. So durability aside, some of the new Gen 4s with the dual density foam, they play amazing, bigger sweet spots. You can control the power in a much better way, and they're just more consistent overall. You get what you get out of the box, and it doesn't change a bunch after you hit with it.
Without saying what they are, I would say that of my top 5 paddles right now, they are all foam.
Okay. Why don't you want to say what they are?
Because somebody's going to want to know like what the order is, what are my top 5?
Fair.
I need to put some more
thought into it.
Yeah, some gray matter into that one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't count the Gearbox GX2 Power as a Gen 4. It's often a class category of its own. Right. But that's definitely one of my top paddles right now. But yeah, for me also, it's just like every one of them is a dual density, all foam paddle.
Maybe we'll do a leaderboard at some point in the future here of our actual top 5.
Yeah, we should.
One more question, Don. This was from Derek S2208. Are you ever going to do any more drum covers? Speaking of Mr. We all miss you. And for the pickleballers that don't know, this man has put out some of the most amazing drum covers ever. Glad to see you found another joy, but sounds like maybe you need to reprise some of your old work.
I would love to. Like, drumming has been a lifelong passion, Both of my parents are musicians. Some of my earliest memories was sitting at a drum set when I was like 3 or 4 years old, hammering away on it. And I used to have it's still up. You can go watch videos on it, a YouTube channel. And that was the original Johnkew. It was called Johnkew.
What kind of numbers were you getting on that channel?
A lot bigger numbers than Pickleball, yeah.
Interesting.
I think there's like 65,000 subscribers, and, a couple of videos have over 1 million views, It was never a moneymaker. Everything was copyrighted. I was doing drum covers of like progressive metal, very odd time signatures. But my God, the labor investment into each one of those drum covers was mind-boggling. I don't know how I ever had time outside of my job to do
really?
that.
I would think that the labor would be less than what we're doing here.
No. So in the studio, there were 12 microphones on my drum kit, sometimes 14. And the drum are so loud, so you've got to turn down the gain, and to mix all of that into something that sounds good. It took me literally like 5 years to learn how to do it, like a lot of work into this. And then learning the songs, so I always make things difficult on myself, Eddie. I have to choose the hardest songs with like a 13/14 time signature and 10 changes of the time signature. Learning them took forever. Mastering them took forever. Mixing, there were 4 or 5 camera takes, and then syncing all of those together with the audio. The thought of doing another one is very appealing. Like, I love the whole process, but it would like cut into like I wouldn't be producing any pickleball content for 2 months, right? While I'm learning the song and filming and editing and everything else.
I do think at the very least, John, we need an intro and an outro for the podcast that is you.
That would be totally random, especially for people that don't know that I'm a drummer. It's like, what the?
Nice little Easter egg, though.
Yeah. Funny question. Yeah. What was this gentleman's name?
Derek's.
Derek?
Derek S2208.
Derek, thank you so much. I miss it a ton. Thank you for dropping into the pickleball space to say hi, and haven't forgot about all the viewership from the Johnkew channel.
I wonder how much crossover there is.
I don't think much. Not much at all.
At least one.
Right.
Good stuff, John.
Awesome.
Good job.
Yep. Thanks, Eddie.